Welcome to this explainer. Right beneath our feet, and actually literally inside our own bodies, an epic, unseen hero's journey is happening every single second. We're talking about the continuous movement and transformation of a single nitrogen molecule, the nitrogen cycle. It's this incredibly fascinating loop that travels from the atmosphere, deep down into the soil, up into plants and animals, and ultimately right back into the sky.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to hit the nitrogen paradox, unlocking usable nitrogen, fueling plant and animal life, death, waste, and decay, and finally, completing the cycle. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The nitrogen paradox. This is a massive biological mystery.
So, our atmosphere is absolutely swimming in nitrogen. It makes up a massive 78% of the air around us. Seriously, every time you take a deep breath, the vast majority of what you're pulling into your lungs is just pure nitrogen gas. It's abundant, it's literally everywhere, and it's blanketing every single leaf on Earth.
Which brings us to a huge contradiction, the central conflict of our story, really. If nitrogen is absolutely everywhere, why are the very plants that desperately need it to survive effectively starving for it? I mean, nitrogen is absolutely essential for plant growth, but they can't just absorb it straight from the air. It's kind of like being stranded in the middle of the ocean and dying of thirst.
Well, the answer lies in the chemistry. See, atmospheric nitrogen exists as N2. That's two nitrogen atoms bound together to form a highly stable gas. And that bond, it is incredibly tough. It effectively locks the nitrogen away in this inaccessible vault that plants simply cannot break into. So before the biological world can actually use this super abundant resource, that stubborn bond has got to be broken.
And that brings us to Section 2, unlocking usable nitrogen. This is where the magic happens.
Enter nitrogen fixation. This is the crucial process where that stubborn atmospheric nitrogen gets transformed into usable forms, specifically ammonia or ammonium. You can think of it like translating a foreign language into one that plants can actually read and understand. Without this vital step, our entire ecosystem would literally just grind to a halt. Since plants can't fix nitrogen themselves, they rely on the real biological heroes of the soil, specific nitrogen-fixing microorganisms. For example, we've got rhizobium, which basically teams up directly with the roots of legumes. Then there are free-living soil bacteria like Azotobacter, and even aquatic heroes like blue-green algae. These tiny, hardworking microbes are the ones actually yanking that nitrogen gas right out of the air and converting it into a plant-friendly format.
But biology isn't the only way to break that tough nitrogen bond. We also have to give a huge shout out to atmospheric fixation via lightning strikes. The immense heat and raw energy of a lightning bolt can actually zap nitrogen in the air, converting it into compounds that just wash right into the soil with the rain. Plus, human ingenuity plays a huge role here too, through industrial fixation, where we manufacture nitrogen fertilizers artificially to feed crops all over the globe.
All right, Section 3, fueling plant and animal life. Let's see what happens once that nitrogen is in the soil.
So the ammonium created during fixation is definitely useful, but a lot of plants actually prefer a different item on the menu. They get it through this beautiful two-step chemical dance called nitrification, driven by specific nitrifying bacteria. Step 1. A bacteria called Nitrosomonas transforms the ammonium into nitrite. Step 2. A totally different bacteria, Nitrobacter, steps in and converts that nitrite into nitrate. And nitrate, that is the main, highly sought-after form of nitrogen that plant roots just eagerly soak up. Once it's assimilated, meaning it's been taken up by the plant's root system, the plant immediately puts this nitrate to work. We're not talking about empty calories here. These are the fundamental building blocks of life. The plant uses this nitrogen to produce its critical proteins, essential enzymes, nucleic acids, and chlorophyll. Yes, the exact same pigment that makes plants green and lets them photosynthesize. Simply put, without this nitrogen uptake, the plant just cannot survive. Now, if you're wondering how exactly you and I fit into this microscopic story, well, it's pretty simple. Animals absolutely cannot pull nitrogen out of thin air either. Whether you're crunching on a fresh green salad or grabbing a burger, you can only get your essential protein-building nitrogen by eating plants or by eating animals that have eaten plants. So that single nitrogen molecule has now successfully made the jump from the atmosphere down to the soil bacteria, into the plant, and finally straight into your own proteins.
But of course, every hero's journey has a darker chapter. Section 4, death, waste, and decay. Look, when plants and animals eventually die, or, when animals produce waste, they leave behind a massive amount of organic nitrogen.
This is where our decomposer microorganisms, the bacteria and fungi in the dirt, step up. They perform this vital recycling service called aminification, which is sometimes called mineralization. They basically break down all that complex dead organic matter and convert the organic nitrogen back into ammonium, so it goes directly back into the soil to be used all over again.
But wait, it isn't always a perfect, seamless handover back to the plants. Sometimes a sneaky counterprocess called immobilization happens. Soil microbes will actually hoard this newly available inorganic nitrogen all for themselves, converting it into organic nitrogen to build up their own microbial bodies. When they do that, the nitrogen becomes temporarily totally unavailable to the plants. It's basically like putting a temporary freeze on a bank account. The nitrogen is absolutely still there in the soil, but the plants just can't spend it until those microbes eventually die and decompose themselves.
Eventually, the traveler has to return home, right? Section 5. Completing the cycle.
So how exactly does the nitrogen get back up into the sky to maintain that crucial 78% atmospheric balance? Well, it happens through a process called denitrification. But here's the catch. This process only kicks in under very specific environmental conditions. We're talking about waterlogged, oxygen-starved soils. Picture heavy, flooded fields or deep, dense mud where oxygen just can't easily penetrate.
In those tough, oxygen-deficient spots, specific denitrifying bacteria, most notably Pseudomonas and Bacillus, step up to the plate. They systematically reverse the entire process we've just been talking about. They actually strip the oxygen away from the soil nitrates just so they can breathe. And in doing so, they convert the nitrate back into a gas, eventually releasing it as atmospheric nitrogen, or N2. The molecule just floats right back up into the sky, exactly where it started. When you look at all these incredible steps together, you can clearly see why this continuous loop is basically the ultimate biological engine for our planet. It flawlessly maintains nitrogen availability in the soil, which in turn drastically improves overall soil fertility. That supports absolutely all of our global crop production. It enables the formation of essential proteins across the entire food web, and it perfectly recycles nutrients through the ecosystem without wasting a single thing. It really is a complete masterpiece of natural engineering. So the next time you step outside and take a deep breath of that 78% nitrogen air, just think about the epic, invisible journey that tiny little molecule is about to embark upon. Is it going to be struck by lightning? Digested by some microscopic soil bacteria? Will it become part of a giant oak tree? Or hey, maybe, eventually, a part of you? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the incredible unseen world around you.